Let me tell you something. When two trade stories drop in the same week involving the Chicago Bears, one of the most polarizing defenses in the NFC, you do not sleep on it. You sit down, you lean in, and you pay very close attention, because right now, with training camp just around the corner, the Bears are sitting at a crossroads. And the decisions that Ryan Poles makes over the next few weeks, whether it's adding a proven pass rusher from the desert or shipping a polarizing cornerback to the West Coast, could genuinely define what this team becomes in 2026. I'm Fave, and this is Faves, where we don't sugarcoat anything. Let's get into it. The first story is the one Bears fans have been begging for all offseason. And I mean begging. If you've spent any time in Bears fan spaces over the last 6 months, you already know the frustration. The defensive line situation on the edge has been one of the biggest unanswered questions since the confetti dropped on the NFC North title. Chicago won the division last year. Nobody's disputing that, but their pass rush was not the reason why. According to multiple sources, the Bears finished tied for the 7th fewest sacks in the entire NFL last season, finishing the year with just 35 sacks as a team. 35. Think about that for a second. You're a division champion. You've got Montez Sweat on one side making plays, Dennis Allen drawing up schemes, and a defense that has legitimate aspirations to be elite. But if you're only generating 35 sacks across an entire season, you are putting an enormous amount of pressure on your secondary every single time a quarterback drops back. That's not sustainable. That is a problem, and it needs to be addressed. Now, here is where it gets interesting. According to Bleacher Report's Christopher Knox, and this is a name you need to know because he has been one of the most plugged-in voices on this Bears roster situation, the Chicago Bears have been identified as one of the most logical trade destinations for Arizona Cardinals edge rusher Josh Sweat. And when you hear that name, if you know football, you already understand why Bears fans are excited. Because Josh Sweat is not just any edge rusher. This is a guy who has developed into one of the premier pass rushers in the entire league. Last season with the Cardinals, he recorded a career-high 12 sacks to go along with 13 tackles for loss, 17 quarterback hits, and 4 forced fumbles. That production speaks for itself, but the context behind it makes it even more impressive. The Cardinals went 3-14 last season. They were a disaster, and Josh Sweat still found a way to put up those numbers while playing on one of the worst teams in football. So why might he be available? According to Cardinals insider Kyle Odegaard, he had been hearing for a while that Sweat is, as he put it, not particularly happy in Arizona. Now, Odegaard didn't get into every specific reason behind that frustration, but when you connect the dots, the picture becomes pretty clear. Sweat signed a 4-year, $76.4 million deal with the Cardinals, but here's the detail that changes everything. After the 2026 season, there is no guaranteed money remaining on his contract. Zero for a guy who just put up career numbers, who came off a Super Bowl ring with the Philadelphia Eagles, and who now finds himself playing on a rebuilding roster in a division that includes the reigning Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks and the title favorite Los Angeles Rams that has to sting, coming off 12 sacks. Josh Sweat deserves more financial security than what the Cardinals are currently offering him. And when a player of that caliber starts feeling undervalued and stuck in a losing situation with no guarantees past this year, that's when trade conversations start to happen. Knox made the connection and put it in writing. As reported by Bleacher Report, he identified the Bears and the Green Bay Packers as the two most logical trade suitors if Arizona decides to move Sweat. And in an earlier proposal, Knox outlined what that deal could look like: a conditional third-round pick in the 2027 NFL Draft heading to Arizona in exchange for one of the most productive edge rushers in football. Now, I want to take a second here and give you Faye's personal opinion on that price, because this is exactly where I think some people are underselling how good this deal
need an
actually
onside
is.
kick, Josh
A
Blackwell.
conditional third-rounder for Josh Sweat, a guy under contract through 2028 who just hit a career high in sacks, who is only 29 years old and has been one of the more durable pass rushers in the league. That is a steal. Ryan Poles, if you are watching this, do not waste time making that pick conditional. Clean trade, straight up, get it done. Now, I know that NFL Network's Ian Rappaport did report that Sweat is not being traded. And look, I have respect for Rappaport's sourcing, but this league has given us too many examples of that exact sentence being followed up by an actual trade to just take it at face value. The Cleveland Browns swore up and down that Myles Garrett was not available. Then they traded him to the Los Angeles Rams. These things change. Front offices change their minds, especially when a player's unhappiness becomes more public and the right offer arrives at the right time. Rappaport's report does not close the door on this. What it does is tell us that Arizona hasn't picked up the phone to actively shop Sweat. That's different from it being impossible. Let's talk about why this makes so much sense for the Bears specifically, because I don't want to just lean on the headline. When you look at this defensive front, Montez Sweat is the anchor. Nobody is debating that. He is a legitimate star, and Dennis Allen has built this scheme around him. But what sits opposite him is a collection of question marks that would keep any defensive coordinator up at night. Austin Booker is exciting, and yes, he showed flashes last season with 4.5 sacks, but he is still a young player who has not done it consistently at the NFL level. Shamar Turner has a motor that doesn't quit, and his potential is real. But expecting him to immediately become an impact pass rusher in 2026 is asking a lot from a guy who is still figuring out how to win on a week-to-week basis. Dayo Odeyingbo was brought in with expectations, and it has been a slow start. Collectively, Odeyingbo, Turner, and Booker combined for 5.5 sacks last year. 5.5 as a group. That is the exact problem the Bears have been trying to solve. According to a report from Sports Illustrated, Ben Johnson's coaching staff has publicly said they are betting on that young pass rusher group to take a step forward in 2026. And I understand that logic. You believe in your guys. You let the coaching develop them. You hope the jump comes. But Fave's take? You cannot afford to bet solely on development when you have a chance to add a proven commodity who just put up 12 sacks. You play both sides of that bet. You develop the young guys and you add Josh Sweat, because the teams that are going to make deep playoff runs in the NFC this year, the Seahawks, the Rams, the Lions, they are not sitting around hoping their pass rushers figure it out. They are going out and getting the answers. The 3-team scenario that Knox later floated, involving the Carolina Panthers as a third party, adds another wrinkle to this conversation. In that version, as reported by Bleacher Report, the Bears send tight end Cole Kmet to Carolina, the Panthers chip in draft compensation to Arizona, and Chicago lands Sweat without having to give up as much on their own. The Panthers need a pass-catching tight end, and Kmet, despite his uncertain role with the Bears since Caleb Williams has elevated this offense, would be an upgrade for them. It's creative. It's the kind of thinking that separates front offices that win in October from the ones that are already planning their draft boards by week 8. Whether that specific version happens or not, the underlying logic is sound. Arizona needs draft capital. Chicago needs a pass rusher. A deal exists somewhere in between those two things if both sides want to find it. Here is what I keep coming back to, and this is Fave's honest assessment. There is no version of this Bears defense that reaches its ceiling without another proven edge presence opposite Montez Sweat. Dennis Allen is a defensive-minded head. Wait, he's the defensive coordinator and one of the best in the business at constructing a scheme that suffocates offenses. But scheme alone cannot manufacture pressure. You need human beings who can beat an offensive tackle one-on-one. Josh Sweat is one of those human beings. He has done it for years. He did it on a terrible Cardinals team last season. Imagine what he does when he lines up alongside Montez Sweat, with Allen dialing up blitzes and stunts and twists, giving Caleb Williams a defense that can actually get off the field on third down. Now, let's pivot to the second story, and this one caught me off guard in the best possible way. While everyone has been focused on what the Bears might add, a proposal has emerged that involves sending one of their current players out the door. According to a report highlighted by Chai City Sports, Thomas Martinez of Chargers on Sports Illustrated pitched a trade scenario that would send Bears cornerback Tyreek Stevenson to the Los Angeles Chargers. And when I first saw that, my initial reaction was, really? That's where we're at with Stevenson? Let me give you the full picture on Tyreek Stevenson, because this situation is more complicated than people give it credit for. Stevenson was a second-round pick, 56th overall out of the University of Miami in the 2023 NFL Draft. The Bears traded up to get him. That tells you something about how much the front office believed in his potential, and in his rookie year, he was everything you hoped he'd be. Physical, press-man corner with elite athleticism and the kind of attitude you want in a defensive back. Then, 2025 happened. According to Pro Football Focus, Stevenson finished last season with a 59.6 coverage grade. He was benched multiple times. According to the same outlet, he allowed the second most yards per coverage snap among cornerbacks who played at least 345 snaps and gave up explosive pass plays at the third highest rate in the entire league. That is not a coverage cornerback. That is a liability. Now, Martinez's argument for why the Chargers would want him centers on a legitimate football point. As he noted in his report, Stevenson was actually Chicago's best man coverage cornerback in 2025, despite all the other struggles. Pro Football Focus graded him at 68.1 in man coverage, tied for 15th best among corners with significant coverage snaps. And here's why that matters for Los Angeles specifically. The Chargers brought in Chris O'Leary as their new defensive coordinator, and according to multiple reports, O'Leary has been vocal about wanting to play a much more aggressive defensive style, one that relies heavily on corners who can win in one-on-one coverage situations. If you build a defense around man coverage principles and you need a big physical boundary corner who can match up against bigger receivers, Stevenson's skill set actually fits that profile. That part of the argument, I'll give it to Martinez. That part makes sense. But here's where I have to pump the brakes, and this is Fave's take unfiltered. I do not think the Bears should be eager to move Tyreek Stevenson right now. And here's exactly why. Look at that cornerback room. Jaylon Johnson is the number one, and when healthy, he is one of the best corners in the entire NFL. Nobody is disputing that. Kyler Gordon is locked in at nickel corner through 2028. Behind those two, you have Stevenson competing with rookie fourth-round pick Malik Muhammad for the number 2 outside spot. And then beyond that group, the depth becomes genuinely thin. Terrell Smith missed all of last season with a torn patellar tendon. Za Frazier missed his entire rookie year. Jaylon Jones is primarily a special teams contributor. Josh Blackwell is on the fringes. If you trade Tyreek Stevenson right now, you are counting on Malik Muhammad, a fourth-round rookie who has never played an NFL snap, to step in and start opposite Jaylon Johnson. I love what Muhammad showed in the pre-draft process. But asking a rookie fourth-rounder to be your number 2 cornerback in week 1 of a season where the Bears have legitimate playoff expectations is a lot. And here is the part that should genuinely concern every Bears fan. Jaylon Johnson has battled injuries throughout his career. He is elite when healthy, that's not in question. But if Johnson misses time and you've already dealt Stevenson away, that secondary becomes very, very exposed very, very fast, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. The Bears were already not fully confident in Stevenson as a long-term solution last season, to the point where he didn't start the final 5 games of the regular season, including the playoff run. But they brought him back. They did not pursue a significant free agent cornerback. They drafted Muhammad in the 4th round. Those are front office signals that the plan is to let Stevenson and Muhammad compete and see who wins the job, not to ship one of them out the door before they've even put the pads on. According to NFL trade rumors, Bears defensive backs coach Al Harris has publicly said that Stevenson still has room to grow and has all the tools to succeed. That's not what a coaching staff says about a player they're trying to trade. There is also the contract situation to keep in mind. Stevenson is in the final year of his rookie deal. His cap hit is $4.1 million. That is not a number that is breaking the Bears' bank. If you trade him right now, you clear maybe $3.6 million in cap space, but you lose the depth. You lose the competition that makes your cornerback room better, and you leave yourself dangerously thin if injuries hit. The value of keeping Stevenson through training camp, seeing how he responds to the pressure, seeing whether Muhammad forces his hand, seeing whether this is finally the year Tyreek plays like the player he was drafted to be. That value is higher than whatever late day 3 pick the Chargers would give you. And here's something I want to add that not enough people are talking about. Stevenson has been publicly outspoken about his motivation heading into this season. He has put it plainly that the last 2 years are on him and that this year is different. Whether you believe that or not is a personal decision. But I have seen enough NFL careers to know that contract years do something to players. When your next deal is on the line, when a rookie is breathing down your neck, and when your legacy in Chicago is genuinely at stake, sometimes that's exactly the fire a player needs to reach another level. I'm not saying Stevenson is automatically going to flip the switch, but I'm not willing to give up on that possibility by trading him in June. So where does all of this leave the Bears as training camp approaches? Here's Fave's final assessment of this whole situation. Ryan Poles has done a genuinely good job building this roster. The interior defensive line has improved. The pass rush group has upside. The secondary has a legitimate number 1 in Jaylon Johnson. Caleb Williams is about to enter year 3 and looks like the real deal. But the one thing that is undeniably still missing is a proven edge presence on the opposite side from Montez Sweat. That is the hole. That is the gap. And Josh Sweat, despite Ian Rappaport's reporting, is sitting in Arizona getting angrier by the day, watching his guaranteed money disappear. Playing on a team that finished 3-14 and has no clear path to contention in the near future. The Bears should be making that call. Every single day until training camp starts, Ryan Poles should be on the phone with Arizona's front office, finding out what it actually takes to bring Josh Sweat to Chicago. Because a conditional third-round pick, or whatever creative three-team construction Christopher Knox can dream up, is a price this organization can afford for a 29-year-old coming off 12 sacks and 3 more years left on his deal. That's a player you can build around. That's a player who makes this defense elite, not just competitive. And on the Stevenson side, keep him. Let him compete. Let Muhammad push him. Let training camp shake everything out and see who emerges. If Muhammad becomes undeniable by the time the preseason ends and Stevenson's role shrinks to the point where a trade makes sense, maybe then you revisit the Chargers conversation. But right now, in late June.
Moving him makes the secondary thinner at exactly the wrong moment. The Bears have come too far to make decisions out of impatience. This is the moment, Bears fans! Training camp is almost here. The stakes are real. The expectations are real.
And every move this front office makes between now and week 1 of the regular season is going to tell us exactly what kind of team Chicago is building for 2026. I want them to go get Josh Sweat. I want them to keep Tyreek Stevenson and see what he's made of. And I want this defense to become the thing that carries Caleb Williams and this offense to the promised land.